Well, that's what I do every night, and you kind of get tired of doing the same thing over and over again, right? So I thought, let's mix it up a little bit tonight, and I would invite you all to come cook with me. My oven's hot. Come cook with me as I make dinner tonight. So YouTube asked me to start doing lives, and I'm a cooking channel, so that puts us in a position of doing cook with me videos, which I think is kind of fun. So tonight we're doing dinner. And I thought I would show you all how I manage dinner every night after I get home from work without making myself crazy and without working too hard, because nobody wants to work too hard to make dinner, right? And when you get home and you've been at work all day, you want to get something on the table that is delicious and that is going to feed your family and make them happy, that you're not going to have to spend 1,000 years putting together, because you got to trade time or money or nutrition or one of those things. And we don't want to give up too much money. We don't want to give up the nutrition, right? So I've come up with a whole rotation of meals that I like to kind of keep a basic pantry stocked. And it's what I pull out on a very regular basis to feed my family when I get home at the end of the day. And I can promise nothing I am doing is difficult, expensive, or really terrible for you. And I feel like that ticks a lot of the boxes if you can kind of hit all of those. All right, so let's talk about potatoes. So I've got these guys. These, I've noticed in the past few years, these little new potatoes are available all over the place. And you can buy them in a couple of different ways. So the way I like to get them, I'm a klutz, y'all, so just be prepared. The way I like to get them is in these little 1 to 1.5 pound bags. And sometimes they come and they're already really small, and I like them that way because you can just throw those straight in the oven. Those go just right in. But if you get them and they're a little on the large side, like these guys were, just a touch big, cut them in half, because the smaller pieces cook faster. And we've had a long day at work. We don't want to wait too long. We're also going to kind of layer everything in here together. So we want to get our potatoes in first, but we also want the whole meal kind of coming together at one time. So we don't want to be sitting around waiting on something to get done. So cutting these into smaller pieces means that that is more likely to happen. So I cut my potatoes in half. I gave them a good sprinkle of kosher salt. I'm giving them some garlic powder. I am giving them some dried thyme. And I'm using dried thyme because dried thyme won't burn in the oven. And I'm going to be using fresh thyme in other places in the meal, and I kind of want those flavors to go from dish to dish. And if you're using one set of flavors in one dish, it's nice to kind of carry that through the others. You don't want everything to taste the same, but you do want the flavor profiles to work together. You don't want them to compete. So this is all we're doing here. That's all you got. And I did preheat my oven to 425 degrees. And I do have this skillet coming up in temperature. And I'm going to start preheating that one here in a minute. All right, so this is our first step, is to get our potatoes in the oven. Make sure they're all separated, because you do want surface area exposed. Oh, I didn't get him cut. You do want as much surface area hitting roasting surface as possible. All right. And then 30 minutes. So we're setting our timer for 30 minutes. I really like those little potatoes for that alone. You can come in, throw some seasoning on those, set them in there for 30 minutes, and boom, you're done. All right, this pan is starting to smoke, so I'm going to move him over just while I'm getting our chicken together. Now those packages of potatoes, I checked earlier when I went by the store. I often will have my groceries picked and delivered from the big box store. Just a time saver. But Here's what I've noticed. You can get those potatoes for $4.99 for a 1 pound, 1.5 pound bag. I have noticed that our discount grocery store carries a potato type bar, almost like bulk bins, where you can go and get them for $2.99 for a pound, which is really wonderful. If you've got the time to go save that money, it's a big savings. You cut your cost in half and you still save time just with those potatoes. And then you still have something that is super easy. That's a win. Now, if you really want to cut the budget, you can do that exact same dish with just a russet potato, which is just about the cheapest thing on the planet. Just cut it into cubes. Treat it the exact same way, roast it for the same time, and with the same seasonings. $4.25, 20 minutes, boom. Russet potatoes are like 49 cents a pound. That's perfect. All right, so we're getting a nice hot pan. This is over medium to medium low. That's my stove. You got to check your own. I noticed my stove is kind of runs a little bit high on that eye. All right, big things of chicken breast. At the big box store, I was comparing some of the prices when I was looking through the app, and I realized that buying the big package, you can get the chicken for $2.39 for boneless, skinless chicken breast. The smaller packages and the tenderloins were all $3.99 and above. So this kind is a much better bargain. So I just buy this, and if the breast is real large, I will put it down and cut it in half horizontally, which is what I did with these guys. Trying not to touch it again, but you can see it's a little bit thin, which I did on purpose. There were 6 chicken breasts in this package, and I just cut them all in half horizontally. And you still have a significant portion, but it does help kind of stretch it out a little bit. All right, so our chicken breast is going to be pretty simple because we're just not dealing with a whole lot tonight. And we're going to have a lot of flavor in the sauce that we're going to build once the chicken comes out of the oven. So we're coming with, that was a neutral, just a plain old vegetable oil. And we're just coming over the top, mimicking the same seasonings. So doing kosher salt and some garlic powder, and I'm going to use just black pepper. I use that combo on almost everything because it works. I actually will sometimes mix up a batch. Now that I can find kosher salt all the time, I don't do it as often, but I used to just mix up equal parts table salt, garlic powder. So table salt, garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper. Just in equal parts, because that was a seasoning that I just used on everything. Because you come home from a long day, you really don't want to think about things, but you do need to get dinner on the table. All right, so our kosher salt, garlic powder, and black pepper. And then these are going to go into our preheated skillet. We like that sound. That's giving us what we want. All right, so this guy comes over here. Swapping out my tongs, and I'm grabbing a lid. Okay, so I've got 25 minutes on my timer that has the potatoes in the oven. That means at the 15-minute-ish mark, we're coming in with the chicken. Now, on this back eye, I'm going to get this pan back here nice and hot because we're going to do another dish. This is another place where you can decide how much you need to cheat. I will take a shortcut right now because I need it. There are times when you go through different stages, and there are times when I would rather save the money and I will do everything myself. And there's other times when I need to get a little bit of help, and I'll take the shortcuts that I can find. All right, so we want to come in here with our green beans. And that was just a 1 pound package of green beans that I got from the big box store. They come already washed, they're ready to go, and I'm going to use them. And you have kind of a classic combination here with your new potatoes, your green beans, and your chicken. It doesn't get better than that. That's kind of a comfort food trifecta. But you do want to get oil on all sides of the green beans. But we also want to zhuzh these up a little bit, because the green bean can be kind of dull, and that's sad. So here we go. We're going to dress them up a little bit. So first of all, I have fresh thyme, and I'm throwing some of our fresh thyme in here on top of the chicken. That's going to mirror that dried thyme that I used on the potatoes. Okay, nice. You like to have your little flavors running all through your dishes. This is another shortcut, and I know there's plenty of people out there, and my son is one of the worst ones. He's like, I'm not going to use garlic if I can't have it fresh. And I'm like, brother, you're the one that's going to be in here chopping garlic. I'll take the shortcut. So now that I am not cooking for a billion people nonstop all day, every day, garlic just doesn't last very long in my kitchen. So I will take the pre-prepared stuff where I can stash it in my refrigerator. It lasts much longer, less work for me. That's a win. I love it. So a big chunk of garlic, I'm going to call it fresh garlic, but you and I both know what we're looking at here. And then a good 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. Green beans are one of those things that just needs the salt. Don't go skimping. But I'm also going to do some red pepper, and I'm not going to go crazy because of how we're going to cook these green beans here in a minute. You will suffocate yourself if you go into a hot skillet with red pepper flake and you don't have a lot of ventilation. That red pepper flake will hit the hot oil. Trust me, I know this from experience. Having a little bit of liquid, which we're going to add some liquid to our skillet, will help mitigate that some. But I'm telling you, that's a big thing to watch out for. All right. So our green beans are looking pretty good. Here's where we are. So you want them kind of covered. Hello. Hi. Single mom of 7. Yes, I was. They're doing really well. Thank you. All right, so green beans looking like about that. Looking like it had a nice little slow snowfall. See that? There we go. All right, so check your skillets. Are you getting nice and hot? Yes. All right, so let's get our oil back out. So yes, I did have a whole bunch of kids. I was lucky enough, I had my own children, and then I was lucky that the universe kind of handed me some more. And so we had a very large, very full household. And it was awesome. Okay, my lid doesn't quite fit my skillet, but we're gonna just make do. So we're just waiting for that to get all hot all the way through. Now, green beans do not like to cook just in a dry skillet. They will blister on the outside, which is great for texture and for flavor, but they won't really get cooked all the way through. So here's what we're gonna do. I've got a little beef broth, and you can use whatever you want. You can use beef, you can use chicken. Doesn't take much. I don't know, what are we gonna call that? 1/4 cup. But it needs a little bit of moisture in there to steam it to kind of get it going all the way through. All right. So 19 minutes down, or 19 minutes to go on our potatoes. That means 4 minutes until we're gonna pop our chicken over. And we're gonna go ahead and slide into, well, we're gonna test. We're getting a tiny, there we go. Tiny sizzle with the green beans. Hear that? They're making 2 different notes. That's a lovely little symphony happening. Perfect. Okay, 18 minutes to go, which means we've got 3 minutes here. We've just dropped our green beans. Let's talk about what our sauce is going to be on this chicken that's going to be coming up next. One of my favorite tricks when I'm cooking, and I know people think that this makes extra work. It actually doesn't. It kind of gives you a little bit of a heads up. I like to kind of give myself a little bit of a stopch. That's just a fancy way of saying prep. So I like to get all my ingredients prepared ahead of time. Helps make sure that you're not forgetting things. I do it all the time. So I will lay out and measure out all of my ingredients ahead of time and get them all out on the counter, lined up in the order that I want to use them. And yeah, I may end up washing a few of these guys, but it's fine. When I started getting ready to cook using this method, my cooking improved exponentially. I think I started doing this about 20 years ago. Makes a huge difference. Try it. Trust me, try it. Uh-oh. All right, so the rest of our time, let's get our thyme in here with our green beans. And it's making some nice noise now. And give them a toss. Because we do want to get as much of a blister on them as possible. They don't really cook all the way through that way, but it's very nice for the exterior and for the flavor. All right, now we come in with our bit of beef broth, and we're gonna throw a hat on it. And now it's time to check our chicken. So let's see how we're doing here. So you can tell just from the texture here, that's the color we're after. These guys on the outside need to get more golden. It's the downside of putting a lid on it. You get cooked all the way through, but you lose some of your golden. But we're doing a mustard sauce, so we're gonna pretend that we got golden anyway. All right, now it's time to leave this uncovered because we do want to reduce the juices just a bit. Make sure our temperature's not too high. Now we're on about a 4-minute timer till it's time to pull this chicken off, okay? All right, let's talk about our pan sauces because this is one of my favorite tricks. When you cook a protein, especially in a big open skillet like this, you develop compounds on the bottom of the skillet, what the French call fond. That just means foundation. And it means foundation because it's how they build the foundation of sauces. Pan sauces are probably your #1 trick for making yourself look like a bombshell in the kitchen without working too hard. And so that's what we're gonna do. And we're gonna do it using a couple of my very favorite tricks. So if you have a little bit of butter and some Dijon mustard, you can make a pan sauce out of almost anything. That is probably If you learn nothing else from me, that right there is probably the best thing ever. But there's more. And we're going to do a couple other things. So first, I'm going to find my citrus thingy, or maybe not, because when our green beans come off, we're going to wake them up a little bit. And I don't want to use wine in the green beans, but they are going to need some acid. So we're going to use a little bit of lemon juice. And I should have zested this lemon before I squeezed it, but I didn't, so I'm going to zest another one. So here we go with the lemon juice, and we're just getting ready for these guys to go into our green beans. And then here is our other lemon. We're going to use this one for the zest. And again, you can skip this, or depending on how much time and energy you have at the end of a long day, you can take it up a notch. So instead of just the lemon juice, if you also want to add some toasted buttered breadcrumbs, spectacular. That goes over the top of the green beans. Unforgettable. I'm just digging out my seeds. Or toasted almonds. That is so yummy. All right. Had to make sure I took the top off my mustard. And you can see how important wine is in my life. If you go to the clearance rack, that's usually where I buy wine. Just recently, I have been lucky enough to get to a couple of Michelin-starred restaurants, and they always want to know if you want the wine selection. It would be completely wasted on me. I don't have the palate or the training or the knowledge for it. But luckily, the sommeliers have a lot of patience with me, and most of them have a lot of knowledge about the whiskey. But when it comes to wine, I just have never developed the knowledge to do justice to good wine, which is kind of sad. Maybe I'll take that up at some point in the future. All right, we are down to 11 minutes on our potatoes, y'all. And I'm stepping around my dachshund. If y'all wonder why it looks like I'm dancing, it's because there's a miniature long-haired dachshund. You can see his tail right there. That's Wampler. Like the sausage, yes, I thought that was hilarious. We're pulling our chicken out. We're going to set it over here to rest. We're going to build our pan sauce. All right. These guys go there. Let's grab our butter. So the first thing, if you can see in this skillet, you see all that stuff? You don't want to lose that. That's where all the flavor is. So we're going to use it. And the first thing we're going to do is pick it up off the bottom of that skillet. And you can use a whisk. I'm a wooden spoon girl myself. And then we're going to get an acid, which is our wine. Just a little bit. Quarter cup is fine. If you don't want to use wine, use lemon juice. You could use a light vinegar. Be careful with the vinegar. If you use something like an apple cider vinegar, it's going to be very dominant, so you want to go lighter on the vinegar and heavier on the stock, because that will be less of the apple cider vinegar flavor being predominant, and it will give you a much rounder, more full-bodied flavor. But just whisk that butter in there. Then we're going to do what makes mustard so magic. Plain old Dijon mustard, and you do not have to get the name brand. I use two kinds. First, a good tablespoon, 2 tablespoons. a plain old Dijon mustard, and it's just the house brand. Works just fine. But to give it a little body and to give it just a little bit of we're coming in here with a little bit of the whole grain, the stone ground mustard. It also gives it a more rounded, balanced set of flavors. You're not quite so one note. And however much you want, or none, because you've already used some, but a little bit more of your garlic. And if you're gonna go with fresh garlic, go right ahead. Personally, if I never have to peel garlic again, I'm happy. Peeling garlic and ginger are the two things in my kitchen that I hate most. I will avoid cooking with them sometimes just because I don't want to deal with them. I hate it that much. So finding the prepackaged, or you know those little tubes you can buy in the produce section where you just squeeze it out? Those are great. I will say though, they're expensive. My son fusses at me. He remembers the very, very broke days. So it's your choice. Use what you like. All right, so we stirred in our mustard, both kinds, and our wine. And we have two more things that we're going to add to this sauce to just kind of wake it up a little bit. First is about 3 tablespoons of our beef broth. You can use chicken, that's not a problem. I'm using beef broth because it was already open in my fridge. That's the only reason. So we're going to let this come up to a simmer. I want those herbs to simmer just a bit more. I do have, how much is that? Not quite half a cup of cream sitting over here ready and waiting on us. I don't want to put it in there while it simmers because I don't want my sauce to break. And we're going to check on our green beans. So the biggest thing with these guys is when they still taste undone. But now is when you give them a check. You're going to taste and make sure that you don't have that raw flavor running through. No, those are great. They need salt though. And I burn my mouth. Which I do all the time. All right, so check your seasonings. So we do need a little bit of salt. Don't forget though, we're gonna add a little bit of that lemon with the lemon zest and the lemon juice. So you don't have to go too crazy with the salt because we're gonna add the acid, and the acid will do a great job of waking up those flavors. Now that we've got the moisture in there, now we can come in with a little bit more of our red pepper flake. Again, don't go crazy. You don't want it to be the most predominant flavor. But it is a great way to wake everything up. And now is time. Oh, look here, y'all. We're coming right in at the wire. Turn down our green beans because we don't want them to overcook. We're going to taste and adjust our sauce. So let's see how we're doing. Man, that's good. All right, I'm going in with a little more mustard just because it's one of my favorite things. I like the punch. But if you're not a mustard fan, maybe dial it back a little less than I did. We will put Dijon on almost anything. I remember my dad, y'all, I'm gonna date myself. My dad, back in the 80s, when Grey Poupon first started putting out those commercials where the two Rolls Royces would pull up next to each other. Pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon? My dad thought that was the most hilarious thing ever. He just rolled. All right, y'all. It is time to get finished. All right, so this is just fresh parsley. And this is the Italian parsley. But Let me make it clear to you right now. If all you can find is curly parsley, use curly parsley. It's better than no parsley. Parsley has a beautiful, bright, fresh flavor. It is not just for garnishes. And when you put it together with a sauce like this, it's magic. And don't forget, our sauce is not just for our chicken, but it's also going to dress up our potatoes. So you want to make sure that the flavor really comes to the party. All right, so I've got, how much is that? I've got that much parsley. That much parsley. About a quarter cup, I guess. You don't have to be real precious with chopping it either. Rustic is the name of the game. Rustic is just another way of saying you didn't mess with it too much. We love rustic. All right. Now that we are getting to the point where we're going to add our cream, we're going to make sure that our skillet is turned way down. And we're going to fish out those thyme stems, these guys. Let me tell you a story about being a single mom too busy to think straight. When the kids were little, I would cook with fresh herbs because I grew them and they were free. I did anything I could to cut costs, but I also had zero time. And so a lot of times I wouldn't bother digging the herbs out of the dish. Whatever it was, it just stayed in there. So when one of the kids would find it, I would just say, oh, make a wish, it's lucky. I literally heard my son telling his girlfriend when she found a bay leaf to make a wish that it was lucky. And I thought, I have just perpetuated something on my kids. All right, let's go in here with our cream. And just because we can, we've added our cream. And remember, at this point, you do not want it to boil. I lost my tongs. Yes, that's another 2 tablespoons of butter. The butter not only helps thicken the sauce, but it also makes sure that your sauce is nice and glossy. You know what? I'm going to grab the thyme out of that. And we have 1 minute until our potatoes are done, which I think was pretty good timing, y'all. So I'm not going to get all the thyme out of these green beans. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'm going to get most of it. And then we're going to go right over the top of these green beans with our beautiful lemon with the zest and the juice. Because remember, we've got a little bit of garlic. Yeah, there's some left in there. We're just going to leave it. Make a wish, y'all. All right, so we've got our red pepper flake and our garlic. There's our lemon juice. Turn that way down so it doesn't. Once you've added your lemon juice, don't cook it too much because you'll lose the flavor, okay? And then our lemon zest, that comes in here too. And those 2 things alone will make those lemons, make those green beans spectacular. All right, we are at the wire. Okay, so I'm going to give it a final stir, and we're going to taste before we put our chicken back in. Thank you. That. Yes. Okay, so we did a good job. All right, anything that's in here, these juices that collect, put those right back in there. And we're not letting this boil now because we don't want our sauce to break. But We are going to let it gently reheat everything. And we are grabbing our potatoes. Whoop. Pretty good, huh? All right, so how are we doing on this? 35 minutes. So in 35 minutes, y'all, we did our chicken, our green beans, our new potatoes, and our mustard cream sauce. And I think we did pretty well. So let's do a little taste test. Because it's all about how it tastes. And before I call anybody to dinner, I get to be the one that gets the first bites. That's the cook's prerogative. Have I used up all of my tongs? I think I have. All right. So we're just gonna do this. That is beautiful. And then our roasted potatoes. Look at that. Look at the color on that. See that? Brown food tastes good. And God bless Anne Burrell. That is truth. Okay, so here is our chicken breast. And I feel like, all in all, how many times can I open this drawer and look for the same thing that's not in there? I think all in all, we did pretty well for 35 minutes. Ready to come eat? Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so the trick is to make sure that your chicken has not dried out, but you need to get it cooked all the way through. Okay? And you need this nice light color all the way through the middle. That's exactly right. And by cutting those potatoes in half, I'm talking with my mouth full, y'all. Cutting those potatoes in half, they're nice and soft all the way through, but they're nice and toasty on all the edges. And with that mustard sauce, it is top notch. And I've already tasted the green beans, but I think we did pretty well. Oh, the lemon in that is everything you could want. All right, so top to bottom, start to finish, 35 minutes. I think we did pretty well for a full dinner, start to finish. And I have to say, thank you all for getting me through my first Cook With Me live. That was not nearly as bad as it could have been. Not nearly as bad as I thought it was gonna be. So, if there is something that you all want to see, or if there's questions that you have, or anything I can answer, please let me know. I really want to do these lives so that it helps you all. I want to do what you all need or want to know and what helps you all most. So have at it. Let me know what I can do for you. That, I think, would be the best. Thank you.